in. Because we will hit all game. We are motivated. We are dedicated. Come on now. Come on now. We will win. Because we are the best on the field. And we hit the field like all day light, all night light, on the blue light, offense light, defense light, his squad light, house call light, and it sound light, and it sound light, and it sound light.
Yeah.
It's official. It's official. It's official.
Combine season is upon us.
I'ma do this here forever.
EQ.
Forever.
Triune.
Forever.
Yeah.
Forever. I'ma do this here forever.
Let's go.
All you haters better be coming. This the day you've been waiting on.
Welcome everybody to the Short Sports Show. I am your host, Daniel Short. Today is February 24th, 2016, and this is the Short Sports Show. We have a ton of news, college football, the NFL Combine, everything all in this show. I'm excited. First off, I want to just say, excuse the hair. They say if you don't try, then you'll fail. I tried. I just still failed. I need a haircut. I should have done it before the show. I didn't, but I will get one right after the show because it's all sorts of messed up. I don't know what I was doing. But anyways, you're not here for the hair tutorials or anything. You are here for college football news and the NFL. We're going to have that all covered in this episode. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at Short Sports Show and on Facebook, The Short Sports Show. And we got an interview with New England Patriots cornerback Tarell Brown. You can hear that here on this show, as well as my YouTube channel. Will play a snippet of it so that way you guys can watch the full thing, the full video on YouTube. It's already been uploaded, so go ahead and check that out. The intro you guys just heard is from Triune featuring EQ called Forever. It's no longer their new singles. They've just come out with another one, which is awesome, by the way. Be sure to check them out. But you can buy Triune's album, Born to Fail, Raised to Fail, Born to Succeed. An absolute awesome album. It is on iTunes right now. All links are in the description down below. First, we will start with college football news. Kind of just go through. Well, there's one major thing we're going to talk about in college football, but a couple of just snippets, a little bit of news that it's been out for a little bit, but just need to cover. Former Wisconsin All-American defensive back Jim Leonard has been named the Badgers' new defensive backs coach. Now, if you guys remember him, he played for the Jets. I think that's where his prime years were with the Jets when they just had Rex Ryan as the head coach and Mark Sanchez when he was leading them to the AFC Championship. Jim Leonard was a centerpiece for that defense as a safety position. Played there for the Jets, went with the Browns, I believe the Bills as well for a couple years. Really didn't last too long on either of those teams, but with the Jets, pretty darn well. And going back to Wisconsin, I think it's perfect for him. Right back into football, being a defensive backs coach, and teaching these guys, what it takes to be an All-American at Wisconsin, and then going to the NFL, transitioning that game, and being a leader of a defense back when he was with the Jets. An interesting little thing is Michigan. Now, most teams have their spring game during the day. Sometimes it's just a weird time. It could be like at 10 o'clock in the morning. It could be as late as maybe 3 or 4. Usually that's when most of the games happen. Now, Michigan, we know with Jim Harbaugh, they've been a little bit different. They do things a little bit differently. Well, they're doing it again. Michigan is going to be hosting their spring game at night. That is right. It will be the first time Michigan has held its spring game at night. The game will be played on April 1st. It could be an April Fool's. Maybe they change it. Doubt it. Serving as the 15th and final practice for Jim Harbaugh and the Wolverines. So again, is it April 1st at night? They haven't released a specific time. I'm assuming 6:30, 7:30. I doubt it'd be too late for them because, it's just a spring game. They're always interesting to watch. At least for me, I love watching spring games from different teams. You kind of see where they're at, where their focus is at, and also maybe there's a guy that you normally wouldn't have talked about throughout the offseason, and you see him make a few plays, whether it's special teams, defense, offense, whatever it might be, makes a few plays here and there, and you're like, well, maybe he can be, maybe he's not a starter, but he can make he could be a piece down the road, or eventually maybe becomes a star down the road that you never would have talked about, never would have guessed. So spring games are always pretty interesting, just like preseason games is basically it. And it's going to be interesting for Michigan to have it at night and see if the Big Ten Network or ESPN tries to pick it up. Now, their rival, after leading Michigan State to the college football playoff last season, head coach Mark Dantonio and his assistants are all getting a little bit more money. They all were rewarded with raises. The school announced Friday that Dantonio's annual compensation package will increase from $3.67 million to $4.3 million. The contract, which includes a $4.3 million longevity bonus if Dantonio is still with the Spartans as the head coach on January 15th, 2020. So an extra $4.3 million. And it still remains into a 6-year deal that can be rolled over annually, and how they pay him back with it. But awesome job for him. And he's not the only one. His assistant coaches will also be getting a pretty good bump up in raises. Now, Dantonio will be paid $1 million if he retires before 2020. That means done. No more. Obviously, y'all know what retirement means. That means not going to another head coaching. I don't know if it's clear whether he retires and then comes back a couple months later, how that works out. And his contract no longer includes a buyout where he leaves for another job. Now, something that was a bit, how you would say, it was verbal, but now it looks like it's more official now. I still wait on it because we kind of see how Baylor is when it comes to scheduling teams that aren't Incarnate Word, or any team that's just a very less dominant football team. Now, Baylor and Ole Miss have reached a verbal agreement to open the 2020 football season in Houston in the AdvoCare Texas Kickoff. The game will be played September 5th in 2020 at Houston's NRG Stadium, home of the Houston Texans. It'll be a neutral site opener for the third in a 7-year span for the Rebels, who beat Boise State back in Atlanta back in 2014 and opened up this season a pretty solid opener, September 5th versus Florida State in Orlando. It's going to be a fun matchup there. In last year's AdvoCare Texas Kickoff, it was Texas A&M who defeated Arizona State 38-17. And future games include Oklahoma versus Houston, which is also this fall on September 3rd, and LSU versus BYU to open up the 2017 season. So Houston, the AdvoCare Texas Kickoff, is really doing a great job getting these big teams and really great matchups that you normally wouldn't have seen all the way over there. Baylor and Ole Miss do their thing, and they do play. It'll be a fun matchup. Obviously, who knows what 2020 looks like? Is Art Briles still with them? Kendall Briles either, is Baylor actually good in 2020, or who knows, is Ole Miss even good? It could be interesting, but if it is, the way the teams are at right now and how it's been the past several years, pretty solid matchup with Baylor and Ole Miss, unless, of course, Baylor backs out and picks up, I don't know, some weak school. I'm sorry, Incarnate Word. I don't mean to pick on you. You're kind of that cupcake team that just keeps playing them. I get it. You need the money. It's all good. Speaking of BYU, their quarterback Taysom Hill plans to return for another season. If you're saying another one, he's been here multiple times. What do you mean? Well, that's because he was a senior last year, and now he's going to get his 6th year of eligibility. Fifth year. He announced via Twitter that Tuesday he plans to apply for a waiver and is likely to be granted another season by the NCAA. He missed the most of 2015 season after injuring his foot against Nebraska, and he also missed games back in 2012 and 2014, all because of injuries. Now, 2013, that was his breakout year. Over 3,000 yards passing, over 1,000 yards rushing. People thought maybe he could be a Heisman hopeful or a dark horse coming into 2014. That did not happen due to injuries. Offensive coordinator Ty Detmer said there will be an open competition at quarterback and that they look forward to the quarterback competition because they have Tanner Mangum, who became the first BYU freshman to throw over 3,000 yards last season and did a pretty good job, had those Hail Mary throws to win the game. But it's going to be a real tough season for the Cougars. This isn't something that, it's great you have quarterback competition, but this is probably the year based on their schedule that you would most likely rather have that go-to guy and that's already established as the starting quarterback, and they're going to go from there because they have to play Arizona. Remember, they're independent, so they play really whoever. But they play Arizona, Utah, UCLA, West Virginia, Michigan State, Mississippi State, and Boise State all this season. You're playing some tough teams. Arizona has a fast offense. Their defense is so that's going to be a shootout type of game. Utah, who knows with them, who they got returning, and how they can run the offense without a quarterback and without their starting running back. UCLA is going to be good. West Virginia is going to be solid. Michigan State's going to be good. Mississippi State, who knows without Dak Prescott what type of team this is, but you can rely on at least an above average team. And in Boise State, again, pretty solid team as well, all in 2016. If anything out of this quarterback competition they can get is you got really good quarterbacks. They're going to push each other, and hopefully that the starting quarterback becomes an absolute superstar that you wouldn't have had otherwise. Because this is not the season to fool around, not with these teams. Now, the main topic that we want to talk about, and I know everybody talks about it. There's articles everywhere, whether it's for likes or for clicks, or they actually truly mean and want to give you information. They want to provide you with really good information. We're going to talk about it here because I want to give you some information and provide you some information, but as well as, we lay it all on the table right now, and we won't talk about it unless it actually happens again from here on out. The University of Oklahoma president, David Boren, has spoken again, and we all know his stand on whether or not the Big 12 conference should expand. Last Monday, Boren said he wants expansion for 12 members and the Longhorn Network to fold into a Big 12 network. He also said a major vote about the league's future is looming in the coming months. So with that, we will discuss once more whether or not the Big 12 conference should finally expand or stay at 10 members until 2025 when the conference, all the contracts run up and the conference explodes. Now, you guys know me. I'm in favor of expansion. I want the Big 12 to expand at least to 12 teams, and really I want it to go 14, 16 teams. I know, call me crazy. I'm crazy when it comes to this, but that's just what I'm in favor for expansion. I want the big conference. I want the super conferences. I want, dynamic teams going against each other. That's just what I want as a TCU fan as well. But I also understand the reality of what leads to expansion, why, and what the possibilities are, what's real about it. The one thing, the reason the Big 12 they're not stupid. They want to expand, but there's too many small fish out there. There's not any big fish they can really pull in and make money and make a better conference. No disrespect to those teams that we're about to talk about, but they're not big fishes. They're not. Since it only makes the discussion a little bit more fun, we're going to proceed as if the conference will expand, and we're going to talk about the teams that are been most talked about, and some of the teams that might not have. Who could join and why or why not. First, we're going to go through the list of who are the real options for the Big 12 and if they decide to expand and who would join. Obviously, you have BYU, Cincinnati, Memphis, UConn, Houston, Louisville, and Boise State. But just like any problem, we got to weed out the bad answers. We got to weed out the wrong programs that aren't going to come over here. And that's sadly pretty easy. Now, there's a ton of things that go into the expansion. Of course, the main one, it sucks, but this is just the reality of it. The main reason and the only way the Big 12 expands is who's going to bring in the most money to us? Who's going to give us either the bigger market, the most where the revenue share per team starts increasing and not stays the same or goes lower. That is the main reason. And also the type of team, the type of school they are, what are their academics like? Are they continually improving? Do they have a specific program? Do they have a law school? Do they have a medical school? What is it that the university brings us to an academic prestige? Then you start to look at, okay, based on all the teams, where are they at? Are they solid at baseball? Are they okay at least in basketball? Are they great in football? Are they good in football? That's what it comes down to. It's not just like, okay, BYU, you look at their history, they got better history than all these schools in football. Shouldn't they be a sure lock? They're not. That's what we're going to talk about. So the first ones are Boise State. And the reason they will not come into the Big 12 is because of the fact that, well, their academic rate for athletes and overall is not really that well. It's not held to a high standard compared to all these teams out here to have a much, much better academic rate than these guys do. And really nothing stands out about Boise State other than that blue turf that provides any value to the Big 12. You look at their overall sports, they're really mid-tier to bottom. Football being, the exception of they've done pretty well, a lot better than what most people thought without Coach Peterson there. They've done a pretty solid job, but that's not going to be enough to lead them to bring in the big money. They're not in the greatest market in northern Idaho. So with that, Boise State is sadly scratched out, and I still hope Boise State joins the Pac-12. I wish the Pac-12 would expand, but the Pac-12 is much more about academics than the Big 12 is. If the Big 12 is not going to add them due to academic reasons, neither is the Pac-12. Then becomes what seems like the highly favored, but I'm leaning more towards it's really not, and that's BYU. Now, people believe that they would be a sure invite, but that's not really the case anymore. Now, had they still had Bronco Mendenhall for the football program and not had left to a lateral or a step down job to Virginia as their head coach, BYU looks a little bit better. But yes, the market in Utah, you touch that area and it could bring in some great economic value. It's not enough. Usually, and that's got to be the main thing, and it's really not enough for them. They don't play on Sundays due to their Mormon religion, which is normal to us fans, and that's fine. We're like, okay, we get it. But for scheduling basketball, baseball, other types of sports for the Big 12, it does become an issue with all the sports, and they look at it, well, we can't really just move it on a Monday. I'm just saying that's one of the reasons. That's one of the reasons I don't care that they don't play on Sundays, but that is just one of the reasons. We spent 40 minutes talking about college football. I am so sorry. And this video, I'm doing 2 parts. I'm probably just going to do 2 parts. This is ridiculous. So we got a ton of NFL news to talk about. We're gonna speed through this. We're supposed to make this in a 45-minute show. We got 5 more minutes. Now we're gonna talk about some stuff, and we're just gonna try to kind of move it along. Kansas City Chiefs head coach Andy Reid will not attend the NFL scouting combine that begins this week or today because of a knee replacement surgery. So he's not gonna be there. Dallas Cowboys defensive end Randy Gregory, has been suspended for 4 games for violating the league's substance abuse policy, the NFL announced Friday. The failed test that occurred during the 2015 season, not after, an appeals process has already started, has been completed. Now, at last year's NFL scouting combine, Gregory tested positive for marijuana. 1 year, almost a year later, he does the same, which put him in the league's drug program. Considered a first-round pick out of Nebraska, he dropped to the 60th overall pick in the second round. The Cowboys and Gregory agreed to a personal handler with him during the season to help him cope with the issue of related to anxiety. Obviously, that didn't look like they worked out too well. Maybe they smoked together. Who knows? He signed a 4-year deal worth roughly $3.8 million after the draft, including $1.4 guaranteed. It is possible that Gregory could lose $370,000 guaranteed in his 2016 base salary as a result of the suspension. Gregory failed 3 tests during the season in order to be suspended for 4 games, which will cost him roughly $143,000 of his $608,000 base salary. And based on the rules of the program, Gregory will be able to work out with the Cowboys through the offseason program, minicamp, training camp, and preseason games. But then that's it. Another guy who was smoking it up was Baltimore Ravens tight end Nick Boyle. He was suspended for the first 10 games of the 2016 regular season for violating the NFL policy on performance-enhancing substances. Not weed. But he also had a second suspension. This is his second suspension in just 2 seasons for Boyle, who was banned for the final 4 games of last season for the same violation. It's like, can't you think? And I just, whatever. The hair's already messed up. He caught 8 passes in 11 games last season. That was it. It's E. Sadly, we lost tight end Heath Miller. No, he didn't die, thank God. But he is retired after 11 NFL seasons, all with the Pittsburgh Steelers, leaving a legacy that includes 2 Super Bowl wins and several franchise records. A 2005 first-round draft pick, Miller had 592 receptions, over 6,000 yards, 6,500 or 6,500 yards, 45 receiving touchdowns, all franchise highs for a tight end position. He was one of the 4 Steelers to catch at least 500 passes. So Heath, we're gonna miss you, buddy. I was gonna go through the whole thing and say, but I'll see on the bottom. We're gonna miss you, Heath. It was so fun watching you. It was so fun. The Rams, they're all about money. They released defensive end Chris Long, James Laurinaitis, and Jared Cook last Friday. And releasing the trio, they saved over $24 million in salary cap space that could set them up to re-sign some of their own key free agents, including cornerbacks Janoris Jenkins, Jermaine Johnson, and safeties Ronnie McLeod, and also Mark Barron. Now, James Laurinaitis was actually at the team facility working out when Fisher called him up into his office and said, "Hey, we decided to let you go." This is crazy. Now, with Laurinaitis out of the picture, the Rams' early plan is to move linebacker Alec Ogletree inside and re-sign Barron to step into Ogletree's spot at the weak side linebacker, who we just talked about was a safety, moving him to a linebacker position. Now, Barron, it's not his first time. He filled in for Ogletree during the final 12 games of last season after Ogletree suffered a season-ending knee injury. Dallas police said Sunday they have obtained video surveillance as they continue to investigate the domestic assault complaint against Johnny Manziel. Now, police did not specify the nature of the video, but the footage is from Hotel Zaza in Dallas. I hate that stupid name. Which is where Crowley alleged the assault began, and a source told film to ESPN. Now, the Dallas Police Department released a statement and also held a brief news conference Saturday afternoon addressing the information. Quote, there has been no determination as to what charge, if any, will be filed against Mr. Manziel, and that they hope to wrap up the investigation here pretty soon. Supposedly this week. It probably happened right after the show with my luck. But we'll just have to see with that. Detroit Lions cut linebacker Stephen Tolus on Thursday. They said that he will no longer be with the team. Now, he led Detroit in tackles with 107 and was due $7.3 million in 2016, which led to his cut. He did miss some time for the first time in his career in 2014 after tearing his ACL. And we saw that when he was celebrating a sack versus Aaron Rodgers, and then don't celebrate. But but he is gone. Colts have released linebacker Jonathan Newsome following his arrest for possession of marijuana last week. He was arrested. Actually, it was February 17th, but that was a week ago. This is the second time in less than 3 weeks that police were called to Newsome's house for a loud music complaint. His friend was arrested the first time with marijuana on him, and then Newsome was arrested for having marijuana. When at Ball State, he was suspended 2 games following an August 2012 possession arrest that had a bag containing marijuana found in his wallet. It's just stop. You have money, you have a career, a passion in football, and you're living your dream, and you're willing to give it up for weed. Like, I don't know, it's stupid. Another guy that's pretty stupid is former Dallas Cowboys running back Joseph Randle, who's now been arrested for the 5th time in 17 months. Wow. I think he has more arrests than he has touchdowns. It's pretty crazy. Now, the Cowboys released Randle in early November last year. Randle was suspended 4 games by the NFL under the league's personal conduct policy a week after he was released by the Cowboys. So, he still has a suspension if some stupid team were to pick him up, which no team is that stupid to pick him up. He does still have a suspension held on him. So whenever he decides to come back, which won't happen anytime soon. The Cowboys, I know people are going to say, oh, the Cowboys just know how to pick him, blah, blah, blah. The Cowboys really try to help him. They offered him counseling. They gave him the best people and to help him with the off-the-field issues, and he refused. Multiple sources confirmed that he refused any type of help. So the team believed they had no choice but to cut him, and they did. New Orleans Saints will likely release wide receiver Marques Colston in the coming days, according to a league source. Colston is New Orleans' all-time leading receiver and touchdown scorer. He will be gone after 10 years. The Jets have released Antonio Cromartie and expected that a move that will save about $8 million in this year's cap. Now, just last March, he signed a 4-year, $32 million contract, but only $7 million in 2015 was guaranteed. The rest was not. So he will be gone. And let's see, wide receiver Laquon Treadwell told NFL.com he will wait to run the 40-yard dash at his pro day on March 28th at Ole Miss. Quote, I've only had a week and a half here in Miami and want to wait until I'm at our facilities to run the 40-yard dash. So he will not run this week. Washington Redskins president Bruce Allen finally said publicly what has been a bad secret, what most people have known for a while, and it was just a matter of when, not if. And that's quarterback Robert Griffin III will play elsewhere next season. And Allen said he'll have his choice of teams to further his NFL career. The Redskins have been able to release Griffin since February 8th, but they've been trying to trade him in hopes to get a low-round draft pick. Just trying to get anything out of it, and no team's willing to take it because they know that they'll just cut him, because if he's on the team come March 9th when the new league year begins, the Redskins will have to pay him $16.155 million. See, I don't think they have to pay him, but that's how much it goes against the salary cap. $16.155 million against the salary cap, which is this 2016 option. So maybe they do have to pay the whole thing. So they know that they will end up cutting him. So why give up anything when you could pick him up? Washington, again, they've held on for him as long as they can. It's just not going to happen. The San Francisco 49ers announced Tuesday that they have signed tight end Garrett Celek to a 4-year extension. Financial terms weren't disclosed, but a league source said that Celek's deal is worth a total of $14 million, with $4.5 million guaranteed, and the contract breaks down to about $2.5 million per year. The Philadelphia Eagles signed Malcolm Jenkins Monday to a new 5-year contract. Jenkins was going into his final season with a 3-year deal that he signed back in 2 years ago as a free agent from the New Orleans Saints to Philadelphia. Jenkins' new deal runs through 2020 and includes $35 million in new money. He will get $21 million guaranteed. His salary cap hit for 2016, which would have been $1 million. Now it's dropped to 5.6 due to the new contract. He's played every defensive snap the first 2 seasons with the Eagles. He has intercepted 5 passes and knocked down 29 of those. He also returned 2 picks, sixes in 2014 and in 2015 against the New England Patriots. Last bit of news here as we wrap up the show. I didn't mean to speed through it like this, but got a time limit here. Colts wide receiver Andre Johnson is, quote, pondering retirement, according to NFL Network, and he has also said he has played his last down in Indianapolis. So he's done in Indy for sure. We know that. It's just a matter of if he is done in the NFL completely or he decides to give it another go with someone else. Who knows? But Andre Johnson has had an amazing career. Obviously, knowing that with the Texans, he was never going to get a Super Bowl, but what a career it was anyways. And whether he maybe comes back to Houston for another year, which I highly doubt, but maybe he says, look, the defense is there. All they really need is a quarterback. They can draft a running back in this year. Maybe they get a quarterback that can work with Bill O'Brien. Who knows? We'll have to see if Andre Johnson decides to give it another go. Either way, it's been a great career for him in case he decides to retire. Finally, we have the interview with New England Patriots cornerback Terrell Brown. It was an awesome talk. We talked about the Texas Longhorns back then when he was there and when they won the national championship. So now, what's the state of it? We also talked about his time with the San Francisco 49ers, how Colin Kaepernick was he a leader of the team in the locker room, and how was the locker room towards Jim Harbaugh towards his final years. We talk about that as well as what he looks forward to with the New England Patriots this season. And for any younger athletes that are watching this, how it is when his rookie year, when he tore his ACL and MCL that took him out for the entire season, how younger athletes can react and deal with that, whether they're in high school, college, or even going to the NFL. Check it out here on YouTube. The link is in the description down below. I had an awesome time with Terrell Brown. You can check him out. Again, links are in the description down below, and I'm sure I have a box somewhere here that shows the thumbnail, or you can click on the screen as well in case that's easier to watch the video. For y'all listening on the show on podcast on y'all's iHeartRadio, iTunes, Spreaker.com, Stitcher Radio, and where else are we at? I think that's about it. Spreaker.com. We're everywhere. Thank you so much for the support. I truly appreciate it. Come on over to YouTube. Come check it out. Come out, check out the video. I got a little spiffy. Got a little nice touches around here. Again, I hope everybody enjoyed the show and enjoyed talking about the Big 12, some NFL news, the NFL Combine. We'll recap all of that coverage of the NFL Combine next Wednesday as we will be back. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you for watching. As always, God first, God bless. And I will see you guys next Wednesday. Peace. And as always, God first, God bless. I'm out. Peace.
Forever. I'ma do this here forever. Forever. I'ma do this here forever.